and they will engage verbally with the audience. So this is the basic philosophy behind the lightning talks, and you don't need to introduce yourself. I will call your name. Right, I'll call your name, and immediately you will start your topic. You don't need to introduce, or it has already been conveyed to you. They will immediately start their discussion. So this is also a challenge for the audience, because they have to constantly sort of engage with a new area after every 3 minutes. So this is what I intended to say as an introduction to this particular concept. So now I would like to call upon the speakers one by one. So the first speaker is Dr. Chumke Biswas, Associate Professor of English, TSEC, Mumbai.
Thank you. Of course. I hope I'm visible. Good afternoon. Would you like to listen to a story? Because I'm not here to share any knowledge, but I'd like to tell a story. The story is about the Luddites. So way back in 1811, there was a whisper going around in Nottingham about a fantastic invention. Can you guess what that is? Well, I'll answer for you. It's the bread-making machine, okay? Now, at that time, the Luddites were already very, very annoyed because they had lost their textile mill jobs, and they took their mallets and they smashed all the bread-making machines that they could find, believing that they could stop the tide of progress. But the machines came back, and sliced bread became even more cheaper and more accessible to the common man. And therein comes the proverb, the best thing since sliced bread. And the very essence of this idiom tells us about how important and transformatory technology had become to human beings. Now, the cycle of fear, skepticism, overindulgence, and ultimately a decline of traditional skills has been the hallmark of all industrial revolutions, starting with Industrial Revolution 1 right up till 4. We are in the era of the fourth industrial revolution, and we are still grappling with the fear of change and AI. But like the Luddites, we start with fear, then we indulge in it, and right now we are at a time where we can't live without AI. Now, the Luddites could not stop the machines, and neither can we stop AI. But here is the caution. If we are over-dependent on AI, we're going to lose two basic characteristics of human beings. The first one is the gift of language, and the second one is the gift of creativity. We'll end up producing language that is not only overtly correct, it'll be emotionless, and it'll also be a synthetic product. And I'm worried that maybe, 2 or 3 years down the line, all people will be presenting would be speeches created by ChatGPT. And that's why I wanted to share this cautionary tale that we must use AI, but with some kind of discretion. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Biswas. The next speaker is Mr. Bidya Bhushan Nayak. Yeah.
Good afternoon. When I first met Professor Elango in IFLU, and I heard about India Reads, I found out that their concern was that people don't read anymore. Children don't read anymore. And I started questioning myself, why would they? I mean, we all know why they should, but why would they? They don't need to read anymore. Their smartphones and internet have replaced them. Students don't even read for their academics anymore. They have online explanation classes, videos, slides, coachings, apps, and of course, AI. Apart from that, they have their audiobooks, YouTube, for any other kind of extra knowledge. For fun, they have Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and other such apps. And we can't even blame them. Because the teachers, parents, and all other adults around them are as much affected by this pandemic of smartphone addiction. And we know it fuels our mental health crisis, depression, anxiety, and post-sleep cycle, but still cannot manage to avoid it. That is because it fills our brain with dopamine that makes us feel so good, increases our drive, and keeps us wanting some more. The drive we lose there is actually very important in the other productive sectors like education and sports. Are you familiar with the Google's new tagline for the new feature of superfast payment? Tap with a pay, pay with a tap, reply ASAP. Less time to pay, more time to play. As if people can't spare even a minute out of their screen time. It is scary how deeply involved we have become with our phones, but we can't just get rid of them because we are too dependent. And they're also useful and productive at times, and we need them. So what's the solution? How do we get the young generation to read again? How do we get them addicted to the books instead of their smartphones? My answer is reading camps. With only books around them and nothing else. No internet, no digital connectivity, no screen time. Just the smell of good old books, fictions, comics, and adventures all around them. They want fun, information, ideas, stories, anything. They'll have their books for that. And we know there is a book for everyone. And once a child starts reading, it won't be long before others follow. Peer pressure and influence is real in that age. I say beat the digital addiction with book addiction, beat the dopamine addiction with some serotonin. So happy reading. The title of my talk was Reading Camp, Digital Detox with Books. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vidyabhushan Naik. He's a PhD research scholar in EFL University, Shillong. It's a pleasure to listen to you. Now, may I invite Mrs. Oravan Peradin, and she's from Bangkok, Thailand.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. Sorry, and I'm excited also. My topic is integrating a real life example in my math classroom. Most of my students really not appreciate math like what I do. They really hate math, actually. That's why, as teachers, you have to help them understand. I'm using a real math problem to help them understand why they have to learn math. For example, in my math class, I use percentage for them to see how they can use percentage in their math class. When they go to supermarket, they have to calculate that. And when they come back to my math class, they have to share that with their friends. And second, for my topic, I choose, for example, I give them a budget and make decision. For example, if you have to go to India, how can you manage that money to go to India with so many things? Try to help them understand math is not just only the numbers in the paper. And after they see how important and building that is important to learn math, I can see from their eyes, they're really so excited. And after we start with those kind of important why they have to learn math, they actually really interested to learn other things more other than that. And another example I use, for example, in geometries, and I give them example for looking around, but you can see the chair is one of the shape of mathematics. And also along the way you come to school, what do you see, what is geometry along your life with mathematics? And I found that those kind of techniques to helping students to see how important to learn math, that is some sort of helping tear down the walls of, they don't like math, and learn more in so many things we have to give to them. And that is the thing I found out as teaching over 2 decades I have been teaching math for over 22 years now. And that thing quite really helped students to see how important to learn math. And that what I share with you, that is integrating some example of real life example. Also, you can use in your field of
Please
teaching
wind up.
English.
You have to wind up.
Okay. I hope as your teacher here in India, you will see real life example is really useful for students. Thank you so much.
Mrs. Oravan Perudin. So our next speaker is Ms. Defi Kodur, PhD Research Scholar, the Royal School of Languages, the Assam Royal Global University.
Very good afternoon to everyone present here. So the topic that I'll be talking today is about my culture, my tradition, my roots, the Khasi culture, and the Khasi tribe. So Meghalaya, as we all know, is a home of 3 tribes which practice a very unique matrilineal system, which include the Khasi, the Garos, and the Jaintia. So a matrilineal society is the one in which the lineage or ancestry is traced from the mother side. So as the Khasi people are an indigenous ethnic group of Meghalaya in northeast India, known for the unique matrilineal system, like I have said, are believed to have been migrated from Myanmar. They shared a very collective ethnic identity known as Kihinyotrap Hinyoskum, or the 7 Huts, representing one of the largest surviving matrilineal system or matrilineal cultures in the world. In Khasi society, like I said, the lineage is traced through the mothers, and the youngest daughter, or as we call the Khunkhaddo, holds a very great responsibility in the family. So the Khasis have been shaped by the myths and folklore, particularly the story of the Hinyotrap Hinyoskum, who, according to the legend, was sent by God to tend the earth's garden. They were connected to heaven by a bridge known as Ulum Sopet Bening, or Navel of the Earth, which was later destroyed due to the evil practices since, leaving them permanently on earth. So now Desmond Sir has actually said about the literature in Khasi society, in how when the literature came, and like Desmond Sir said, literature came until it is 1842, and a Welsh missionary named Thomas Jones arrived in the 19th century, played a very important and significant role in the Khasi history. So the Welsh missionary Thomas Jones opens a missionary school and began preaching the local people in their very own language, which is Khasi, with such smoothness and adore and admire him. Thomas Jones also introduced the Roman script for the Khasi language, and he also published a Khasi reader and compiled a Khasi dictionary in 1842. His work had a lasting influence, and he is also remembered as
You have
the
to wind
founding.
up.
Sir Thomas Jones is also remembered as the founding father of the Khasi alphabets and Khasi literature. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Defi Kodur. Now, the next speaker, I guess, is absent, Ms. Gunjana De. She's not here. So I would like to call upon Ms. Archita Gogoi, PhD Research Scholar, Department of ELTAI, Guwahati University.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. So today, I'll briefly talk about how incorporating home languages of the student can support in the development of English reading skills, particularly in linguistically diverse classrooms. Like the ones that I have been conducting research on, it's the tea garden languages of Assam. In these classrooms, students come from a various linguistic background and various indigenous communities, each with their own home language. However, the medium of instruction is Assamese, and English is taught as a second language or third language. This creates a significant language gap between the teachers and the students. So how can we bridge this gap? We can do this by incorporating the home languages of the students into their English instruction. So I'll be basically focusing on their reading instruction. Firstly, when teachers allow students to use their home languages as a resource, it reduces their anxiety and boosts their engagement. In my classroom observations, I have noticed that students often struggle to understand English text when teachers translate words only into Assamese, which is their medium of instruction, while excluding their home languages. So to address this, teachers should encourage students to first discuss in their home languages, which helps them to understand the English text better. This approach aligns with translanguaging research, where students' entire linguistic repertoire is utilized to enhance comprehension. Secondly, incorporating home languages helps in vocabulary building. For instance, in one of my observed lessons, the teacher introduced new English words from the textbook and allowed students to translate them into their home languages before using them in the sentences. This not only made the learning more meaningful, but also reinforced students' understanding of both the English and home languages vocabularies. By connecting familiar concepts with new English words, students build stronger mental associations. Lastly, using home languages fosters a sense of belonging. In many cases, students feel alienated when their languages are ignored.
You have to wind up.
Yes, sir. By acknowledging and incorporating these languages in various reading activities or tasks, they can show respect for the students' identities. So incorporating home languages is not about replacing English, but using them as a scaffolding technique. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Archita Gokoi, for your presentation. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Joseph Binot. Yes, as a PhD research scholar, Department of English, St. Joseph College.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk about a pressing concern faced by all of us, research scholars, teachers, professors. It is very difficult to publish a paper. Like words like scopus, UGC care list, citations, H-index, these words would make us turn even in the grave. It is very, very difficult. And we can't convince our institutions or authorities like UGC or universities to change the criteria and make us, like as a research scholar, we all face that, or as professors, we all face that. It is so difficult to convince the authorities. So I am deliberating on a new approach, like a different approach, where we can improve the process. So I read an article like a month ago wherein they calculated the mathematics of peer review. It is said that peer review works theoretically. It is not practically possible because on an average, 3 million papers are published every year across different fields. If each paper is reviewed by 2 or 3 reviewers and each reviewer spends 4 hours to 8 hours, it is mathematically impossible. And it is very, very difficult to find a reviewer. If you send a paper to a journal, it is very, very difficult. The process is very, very slow because of this. So what I am proposing is we have to fix peer review. We have to open up it, like for example, research literacy. Research literacy is very, very low across the world. I am saying this because there is an article or there is a website called a Retraction Watch. They track all the research papers published across the fields, and they found that a retracted paper had 4,000 citations. They had manipulated the data, they had published the paper, and it had 4,000 citations, and it is a pressing concern because we all fail to notice it, the mistakes. So if we improve research literacy, we can fix this. We have to open up. We have to include research literacy in our courses like BA, MA, everything. We have to conduct programs for teachers, professors, and we have to include more reviewers. It is very, very difficult to find reviewers nowadays. So we have to train them, include them in the review process. So this will help to fix our process, and it will open up. For example, even the number of retracted papers by
you have
Indian
to wind up.
authors is very, very high. They are saying that every month it is being retracted for some issue, either due to peer review or even some like ghost authors, some like fake journals, everything. So it is high time that we improve our research literacy, we open it up to our students, even if they are in UG or PG, so that we would have a bright future wherein researchers can complete their PhD on time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Joseph Vinod, for your presentation. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Datta Gangadhar Rao Samant. He's an Associate Professor of English, Toshniwal Arts, Commerce and Science College, Sengaon, Maharashtra.
Good afternoon, everybody. Basically, I teach in rural area, and we have a lot of problems. Among them, we have a very serious problem of spoken communication of our students. They feel hesitant while speaking or using English in their communication, and for that, we tried to find a solution. We experimented, and we took a workshop for the students, and we came up with an idea that what are the reasons they are not fluent in English or they just are hesitant to speak in English. The obvious reason was they do not get enough exposure, adequate exposure to English, and for that we developed an experiment. It's an experiment basically. 40 minutes a day keeps communication better way. So we have generated an idea of 40 minutes, included the 4 basic skills of language acquisition: listening, speaking, reading and writing. And the 40 minutes were divided into 4 parts equally, 10 minutes for each activity. And this experiment carried out for 30 days. And we got astonishing results of this experiment. Most of the students became confident after the implementation of this idea. They have to spend 40 minutes each day for 30 days for each activity, like listening, speaking, reading and writing. And for that, we have provided them material. Nowadays, students are exposed to technologies like Android mobile phones, and they use it. So we provided them some of the YouTube channels, and these YouTube channels or videos they used to listen to the material or talks on those channels for 10 minutes. Again, they have to speak for 10 minutes, whatever they have listened earlier, and they did very well. Next part was reading, so we provided them some of the books, a list of books and books from our libraries. They read those books for 10 minutes each for 30 days, and last they had to write whatever come to their mind based on these activities. They carried out for 30 days, and we got a very clear results or improvements in their communication, not only in spoken communication.
You have to wind up.
Oh, okay, sir. Not only in their spoken communication, but in writing as well. So this was the idea, and I hope many of you might be teaching in rural areas. So you can use this idea, 40 minutes a day, keeps your communication better way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Samant, for your presentation. Next, we have in line Ms. Priyanka Sana, PhD Research Scholar, Department of English, Bodoland University, Assam.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be talking about research in popular culture. So as somebody who is chronically online, I found myself deeply immersed in the discourses surrounding films, music, games, and many other elements pertaining to popular culture. It's a fascinating landscape where trends emerge, cultural narratives evolve, and societal values are both reflected and challenged. My engagement with popular culture began as something of casual interest and as a result of course, my smartphone addiction, surprise, surprise. Um, and but it soon transformed into a very dedicated observation of how these cultural products influence us and in turn how our culture shapes its existence. So usually what I do is after watching a film or listening to a music album, I would sort of dive into a rabbit hole of its critical commentary. In the form of reviews, essays, and discussions. I would devour every single YouTube video related to that music or film, and that's how I was inspired to do my research in popular culture. Keeps my research interesting and quite fun, to be very honest. And as a student of English literature, most importantly, I was intrigued by the intersection between pop culture and literature. We all know how Shakespeare till now influences film adaptations and even music. And I have written papers or I have presented papers where I have actively tried to dissect music videos and films and tried to connect it with literature and how they draw inspiration from literature. One example is echoes of Walt Whitman in pop music and intertextual analysis of Lana Del Rey's Body Electric, where I dissect how she draws inspiration from Whitman's poetry and many other literary genres. And ultimately, my exploration of pop culture has deepened my understanding of society itself. It has shown me how cultural artifacts can serve as mirrors reflecting our values, fears, and aspiration. So in this journey, I hope to learn more about our society, even our psyche, perhaps. It underscores the importance of critical engagement with the media that we consume, reminding us that every film, song, or game holds the potential to enrich our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Priyanka. I was just about to remind you to wind up, so you have 30 seconds in your bank. So thank you, Priyanka. So next we have Ms. Shweta Sarkar, PhD Research Scholar, Department of English Language Education, EFL University, Shillong.
A very good afternoon to everybody. As we navigate social media, gaming, and various other digital platforms, unique linguistic forms evolve, shaping our identity and community. So today I intend to talk about the emergence of digital dialects that are shaping language in both positive and negative aspects. Digital dialects are linguistic variations made more prominent by the generation Z and generation Alpha. Words like no cap, lit, and other words come under this digital dialects. We have meme culture as communicating language. Then we also have abbreviations, etc. This reminds us that language is not static. It is always evolving and constantly uprising. Now, however, there are concerns about degradation of language and decline of, grammar and vocabulary skills because of this, digital culture, more specifically dialects. Especially with the generation. There's a division in generation. Now what happens is when we talk about this new terms, people from who are not from our generation have no idea of what we are talking. It creates a sense of alienation with those not familiar with this terminology. And therefore, as we embrace this new language, this new digital dialects, it's important for us to create a balance that would bridge the gap between various generations. And with this, I would like to conclude my talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Shweta Sarkar. And the last speaker is Dr. Dinanath Sudhakar, think he's not here. Okay. So we are done in a flash. Well, while introducing the theme, I missed pointing out one particular thing, that a lightning talk session is not merely a challenge for the speaker and the listener, but also for the chairperson. That's because I have to keep taking down notes, and I was reminded of my college days. So yeah, with that note, so first of all, a big thank you to all the speakers, since this was happening in a flash. So maybe our esteemed audience didn't find an opportunity to applaud the speakers. So may I request everyone present to please give a big round of applause to our speakers for their amazing presentations, for being to the point, and most importantly, bringing to the fore a host of important issues, right, and which they could have gone on to speak for possibly an hour, but they did very well to sum them up. Some of them even took less than 3 minutes, like 2 minutes, 30 seconds, and I spoke 3 minutes. It's not that short a time. Well, I was counting the seconds, and I was thinking, yeah, 3 minutes is a pretty okay, time to talk about a particular. It's something that we go on talking for an hour, but I guess just like with COVID, and we knew that an email would suffice, can replace having an hour meeting, right? So similarly, maybe speaking for 3 minutes could save a lot of time and energy listening to a lecture going on for an hour. Anyway, so to sum up quickly what happened in the course of this particular session, the first speaker was Dr. Chumke Biswas. She talked about food cultures and how, the traditional systems, how it sort of engaged with the various stages of industrial revolution, and how it has engaged constantly with that. I would see it as a lure of transformation, and how initially it starts with fear, then gradually we come to accept it, right? This was the crux of her presentation. The next presentation by Mr. Vidyabhushan Nayak talked about reading as a practice. Most of the presentations more or less dealt with, reading, communication strategies. And this particular presentation was on reading as a practice, use of AI, particularly social media, and what are the factors that jeopardize the practice of reading, right? What are the factors and what is necessary in order to facilitate the process of reading unhindered by the lure of technology. This was the crux of your presentation. The third presentation by Mrs. Oravan Perudin particularly talked about mathematics, and talked about mathematics and geometry, and how examples play a role in facilitating understanding and comprehension, how the importance of examples rather than and I guess this particular fact has an important relevance to play in literary studies, how examples can help us understand concepts, understand the theories, right? The next presentation by Mrs. Defi Bakoder Suting. She talked about culture and tradition of the Khasi community, and touched upon their collective ethnic identity, and how Khasi, as one of the oldest surviving matrilineal society, what is the role of that particular societal values and the role played by the Christian missionary. She talked about Sir Thomas Jones, if I'm correct, yeah, and the role played by him. So this again sort of takes us back to the history, how history was framed, how history was fashioned, and how colonialism and Christianity, the dual role played by them vis-a-vis the indigenous communities of the Northeast. The next presentation by Ms. Archita Gogoi, she talked about another important aspect, about significance of home language and the teaching of English. And she particularly talked about how in sort of non-urban areas, like in rural areas, the role played by, the significance and the role played by the knowledge of home language, how it could facilitate the teaching of English, and how the pedagogy of teaching English could benefit by incorporating, the various elements belonging to the home linguistic culture. And she talked about how home language could be a source of resource. If I'm correctly stating, it's like a trans-language research, right? So this is something very pertinent when we are talking about evolving strategies vis-a-vis language teaching. Then the next presentation by Mr. Joseph Vinod talked about, this is a very pertinent area, problems and perils of publishing. How, the very dictum of publish or perish has sort of taken us through labyrinthine mazes to get our works published. This has been the sequence, this has been the scenario for most aspiring researchers, how they have to deal with various problems in getting their works published. This is something that have bothered all of us in various stages of our research, right? And also when dealing with students, this is a question they always have regarding where and how to publish. And he also touched upon important questions of and about the peer review, because it's research and kind of a mechanical process, like we call something like a reviewer 2 syndrome, right? You have a good first review, but the second review is always on the other side. So that sort of jeopardizes the whole process of peer reviewing. So so he talks about this concept called research literacy, how knowing in depth about the mechanics of the research process, how research literacy can help us correct certain things at the grassroots level, right? And that would obviously, when we are doing well at the foundation, that would obviously help us at the higher stages. And how the peer is a very, the problematics of the peer review process could accordingly be addressed in that particular way. So he showed us a particular, way out of this particular, this problem that is bothering all of us. Then the next presentation by Dr. Datta Gangadhar Rao Samant, he talked about the significance of spoken communication. And he again showed us a way out, just like the earlier presentation. He showed us a way out, that how everyday engagement with the various types of communication, speaking, listening, reading, writing, and how mainly he talked about spoken communication, mainly speaking and listening, how a daily engagement, 40 minutes a day, how it could go in the long run to help us overcome the problems of speaking and listening, to help us overcome the problems of communication, and how it could be something very result-oriented. Right, and I guess it's something like a very self-paced process, right? And how activities are going on, like, and he drew inspiration maybe from India Reads, how reading and speaking could, as an exercise, as a personal exercise, could help at our own personal level to enhance our communication skills. The next presentation was by Ms. Priyanka Sana, and she talked about research in popular culture, and she talked about her own experiences of reading, of watching different series on the net, and how she engages in critical commentary, in critical writing. And I found this very significant, because this is also a way in which we are questioning the canon, because when we are looking at very non-canonical text, non-canonical modes of expressions, right? Mediated through the media, right? And importance of multimediality in language learning. So how it helps us to get a broader kind of a multisemiotic understanding of the various forms of media that goes into even with literary studies. And she particularly talked about how it will be helpful as an intersection of literature and popular culture. And I feel this particular subject has a very continuing relevance in the present circumstance. And the last presentation was by Ms. Shweta Sarkar, and she talked about another concept called emergence of digital dialects. And there she talked about how language as a whole is evolving. It's not something which is static, but how language as a meaning-making entity, it's constantly evolving. How it is, how every word, the spelling might contract, but the meanings which are attached are expanding. So the spelling might be might be contracted, but the meaning that is associated, it keeps on expanding, right? She talked about language as an evolving entity, and how it, and also the very question of grammar and vocabulary. How very refashioning of grammar and vocabulary in the present day context in vis-a-vis digital dialects. So these were the 9 presentations made in the course of maybe a 45 minutes or so. So I would like to thank all the speakers and congratulate them for their endeavor and for engaging with us. And I guess this brings us to the closure of the lightning talk session. So at the end, I would again, as a moderator, I would like to thank all the speakers for engaging with their areas, for in 3 minutes time opening up varied vistas of knowledge in front of us. Thank you for your speech. And also I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity, and most importantly for introducing this particular concept. That maybe I would like to thank, personally I would like to thank Dr. Ilango sir for sensitizing me about the importance of this particular session, of this particular concept. So I'd like to thank everyone who's engaged in this particular endeavor. So with this, I would like to conclude my remarks. Thank you so much. Over to you. Yeah, you need just a sec. I made a few markings. This is fine, right? No problem. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Thurjati sir, for moderating this session. I think he was really wonderful. And thanks to all the speakers present here who have deliberately, in a very short time, they have spoken well. And I think it was really amazing that, as the name suggests, it's the lightning talks. And it was very enlightening, isn't it? Thank you so much, Sir, Thurjati sir, and all the speakers. And the lightning talks was another successful session. Sir and all the speakers, you can move to the audience. Thank you so much. Please be seated. It'll just take 10 minutes, and I would like to announce a few important things. After this, we have sponsors presentation that will just take 10 minutes, and I will hand over the stage to Varun Bhagat sir. He will be here to just present the sponsors presentation. After that, we'll be having the paper presentation 1. I would like to just note, many of the participants are asking about the schedule, the agenda. This booklet given in the conference kit, it has all the information that is needed. So you can find it in page 10. The schedule is given, and however, the venues are not given. So I would just like to note the venues and for day 1, after this talk, we have the sponsors presentation in the auditorium, followed by the paper presentation 1, which will start at 3:30. It was scheduled to be started at 3:30, but will now be started in 3:45. So you have to reach the venues in 3:45, and the venues are GHI block. There are 3 blocks. This is the A block. There is the B block, one that you can see just when you enter. And from there, if you take straight, you will see there's a field there. And from the field, there's a chancellery written in a big building there, that side. So that is the GHI block, and the one that has a stage kind of a thing, that is the D block. So if you ask any of our students, they will guide you to the block, and we have no issues on that. So I'm just mentioning that the paper presentations will be held on GHI block and D block seminar hall. Only one seminar hall in D block will be engaged in paper presentation, and all others will be taken place in classrooms of GHI block, second and third floor. And there you will find the classrooms that you're allotted, and everything will be done there. And also the seminar hall in the ground floor and in the third floor of GHI block will be engaged in the paper presentation. So you can find it there. You can ask any of our students to guide you to the venue. After the paper presentation, we have another networking tea. So during the tea, you will find the tea in GHI block itself, first floor lobby. That will be announced by the particular anchor in each session. And another tea that will be served during the same timing, that will be in D block, first floor. Wherever is the seminar hall, right outside the seminar hall, the tea will be served. Then for the cultural events that we have today, that will be again held in the auditorium. So you have to be back by, as per the schedule, it's from 5 to 6, but the paper presentation might delay a bit because it's going a bit 10 to 15 minutes delayed. So after the paper presentation is over, you have to be back to this auditorium for cultural events. And so that will be a fun evening. You will get to see a lot of dance and singing and all sorts of performances that our students have prepared. Both Sonapur College and RGU students, the Assam Royal Girls University students, have prepared some of the amazing dances and singing and performances for all of the participants. So I hope you have a wonderful evening today because the cultural event is only for today. So after that, we'll be having with a lot of events, and these 2 coming days have absolutely packed with a lot of programs. So I hope you enjoy every session. If you need any help, do not hesitate to ask our students, and they will guide you. Thank you so much. And now I would like to hand over the stage to... All right, so thank you, sir. So the cultural, for the evening, the timing is given 5:15. So 5:15, it will take an hour, just hour, 5:15 to 6:30 or something like that. After that, we'll have a ELTAI heads, whatever it is in the schedule, and then the day will end like that. All right, and then tomorrow we again meet, and if you have any confusions with the venue, I can clear it out after the sponsors presentation, but it will be also told to this anchor, so you will know if you ask any students, will get to know. So thank you so much, and we shall meet all the participants, speakers, moderators, delegates, and ELTAI members and volunteers here back at 5:15 for the cultural event. Thank you so much. I am signing off as a host for the lightning talks. Would hand over to Varun sir for the sponsors presentation. Thank you so much.
It's been a while since I've been on stage. So it's like being back and doing some theater. I hope the screen is visible for all. I think the moment you hear sponsors presentation, everyone's antennae kind of tunes out, right? I can see people all trickling out, but trust me, my objective here today is not really to talk about myself, talk about my company, or even kind of sell a product to you all, okay? I know as a sponsor, certain things get force-fitted, okay? So this is one such event, okay? But in these 10 minutes, what I'm trying to do is seed a thought, sell an idea, so that you all can be proselytized to evangelize it, okay? So we at Glibster, our objective, is to create eloquent speakers, So Over the course of the last 3 hours, I've been subject to seeing some fantastic people talk on stage. Professor Desmond, I think I was really floored. The choice of words, his storytelling prowess, right, as well as his voice modulation. These are things, which we at Glibster aim to impart. During the course of these 10 minutes, right, we are going to share with you 10 key insights, which ELTAI and Glibster have kind of got through a survey which we conducted in the first week of October. It's divided into 2 parts. One, which talks about the state of EdTech adoption in ELT classrooms, and the second being, what is the appetite for immersive learning modes? Next slide, please. So insight 1 is there is great scope for technology integration in ELT classrooms. Why? Because in this survey, what we saw is that only 43% of ELT practitioners have either used personally or in a classroom, or even recommended any sort of EdTech solutions to their students, right? And out of these survey respondents, 60%, while they knew about the existence of mobile applications, web platforms, as well as virtual meeting platforms, right, they did not know of the existence of browser extensions which could come in handy for English learning. Next slide. Insight 2. Next slide, please. I'm sorry there are 17 slides, so you will have to hear me say next slide at least 17 times. Okay, so when it comes to the choice of modes, what sort of EdTech really works from an adoption and integration standpoint, our learning has been that ELT practitioners like to be in control of learning outcomes. Now, what does this mean, right? So we at Glibster, we've identified 9 key ways in which technology can be used, right, in imparting English skills, right? So the top 2 are in-class EdTech interventions. Now, this could be, say, conducting live quizzes through the usage of apps such as Quizzes or Quizlet, or even, say, collaborative tools, such as Google Classroom, right? And the second option is a no-brainer. Thanks to COVID, we've had a lot of teachers get into online teaching modes through the use of Zoom, Google Meet, etc. But apart from this, there are 7 others. Now, what are these 7 others? These could be the likes of flashcard-based vocabulary learning tools. They come in at number 3. Gamification apps, the likes of Duolingo, number 4. Right? We've also seen ELT practitioners show interest in terms of using YouTube, right, as well as micro lessons on social media platforms such as Instagram, right? But what comes last in the pecking order is AI-based speech assessments, right, and also imparting English through WhatsApp. The next slide, please. So what should be the key elements in an EdTech solution? Besides assessments and certifications, ELT practitioners have highlighted the importance of ease of usage. Right? Now, this means that it should be a very intuitively designed product with great UI UX, which measures learning outcomes and which has phenomenal engagement. Now, this engagement, I believe we had a conversation with Dr. Ilango a few weeks back, of making EdTech a sort of addictive opium. Right? Now, how do we do that? Right? That's the challenge for EdTech players like us. Next slide, please. So what we've studied through this survey is that most of you have told us that EdTech effectiveness is directly proportional to the efforts which are put in by the students, right? So while 65% have said that it aids in in-class interventions, but 54% of you all have said that, see, these solutions do work, but they work only if students have the necessary drive for it, right? And how do you do that? Is through incentivization, right? Gamification, right? You also have timely notifications, as well as social validation. Community-based, peer-based validation would come in handy. Next slide, please. So the last insight from this particular category of EdTech would be what is the scope for building anything innovative, right? So from existing set of solutions, we see that what has worked for EdTech is solutions that take care of imparting vocabulary skills, pronunciation skills, grammar, right? This could perhaps be attributed to the existence of many such dictionary apps, okay, or apps such as Duolingo and its duplicate, so to say, right? But higher-end application of communication, be it in the form of public speaking, impromptu speeches, right? Personal branding, interview prep, group discussion prep, as well as strategic writing, right? These are perhaps areas for EdTech players to focus on the next wave of adoption, right? So we've taken care of the EdTech part of it. Now let's move on to the immersive learning modes. Next slide, please. So when we talk about immersive learning, the first thing which comes to mind is AR, VR, augmented reality, virtual reality. But in the scope of our engagement with ELTAI, we are only focused on immersive modes such as videos, audio resources such as podcasts, audiobooks, as well as, say, reading. Because after all, when you talk about ELTAI, you can't think of things other than the India Reads movement. Okay, next slide. So the first insight over here is that YouTube is actually preferred digital resource over other EdTech English learning solutions, right? Now, why does this happen? We believe that it's because it is ready-made content, number one. Number two, it is easy to share. You have a link, you just share it, right? So that makes the adoption and integration process all the more easier. Now, what are the sort of channels that get shared on YouTube? These would be the likes of TED Talks or English learning channels, which are suggested by ELT practitioners. Now, other than YouTube, another platform which really works is BBC Learning English. So we conducted this survey, and close to 10% have actually recommended the usage of BBC English, which is curated content, from BBC Media and learning words and phrases from that. Next slide. So in the pecking order of the immersive learning modes, what we see is that immersion through speaking and listening to fluent English speakers, right, is rated as number one, right, followed by audio resources, then reading, and last, it is videos, right? Some of the opinions which we got as to why videos is last in the pecking order is because most of the students see it as a distraction, right? You see it only as entertainment and nothing of intellectual pursuit, right? But if you move on to the next slide, this is a game changer. Audiovisual resources tend to be more effective with text, in the sense that when you watch a Netflix video or a YouTube video with subtitles, with closed captions, or listen to a podcast with English transcripts, then the chances of improving English language skills increases all the more, right? So, and why does that happen? It's because of better contextual understanding. You can associate the usage of a word or phrase with a particular emotion, with a particular situation, right? It also improves pronunciation skills and is highly engaging because you are watching the content which you like to watch, right? So 74% of you believe that it is a very effective medium when it comes to building English vocabulary. Next slide, please. Reading, right? So while ELTAI does promote reading fiction, that is book-based fiction and non-fiction, the survey has thrown out a very interesting insight that reading English news articles as well as editorials, right, should also be encouraged, right? Because 62% of you believe that this helps improve English vocabulary building. The last insight is you've taken the inputs. Now, how do you practice, right? So while AI-based speech assessment apps are in vogue, right, but ELT practitioners amongst you have said that the most effective form of practicing speech is through peer-to-peer interactions. Okay, so now how can this come in handy, right? So you've learned a new word or phrase. How do you retain it better, right? You can come out with a social media post in text, or you can shoot a video of yourself using that word or phrase, right? You can engage in social or professional conversations. But most importantly, how about using, say, hobby clubs? Toastmasters, anyone? Which helps in public speaking, right? So these elements could come in very handy in order to complement the tech in EdTech. Next slide. So we've looked at primary data. Now let's look at a smattering of some secondary research. So what we see is that as per a Kantar IAMAI report, Indians tend to prefer the use of internet for OTT content, right? So India is going to be the home for 900 million internet users going forward, right, in 2025. Out of this, 86% spend their time watching OTT videos and streaming audio platforms, and only 3%, right, on online learning. What can be done in order to change this, right? We've also seen that nearly 76% of Indian consumers in the age group of 18 to 34 prefer watching the open internet or consuming the open internet. What does open internet encapsulate? It has the OTT platforms. It has CTVs, which is connected TVs, smart TVs, right? It also has news channels, websites, right? And it would also have online gaming, right? So is there any way in which we can use these mediums for English learning, right? The third story over there of an IMA professor, Dr. Brij Kothari, he's pioneered something very innovative, right? It's called same language subtitling, and he's using that as a medium to promote mass literacy, reading for 1 billion Indian readers, right? Year after year, we have something known as an ACER report which comes out, right? Something which keeps on saying that a 5th standard student cannot read text of 2nd standard, right? Now, in order to solve this, this is one way in which is actually mooted, and Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has now made it imperative that 50% of content on broadcast media as well as OTT channels will have same language subtitling. So if you're watching a Rajnikant movie in Tamil, the subtitles will be in Tamil, right? And likewise with other languages. Now, we already have most of the subtitles in English, right? Now, this can also promote other language learning, right, in a similar format, okay? And last but not the least, let's look at some data supporting reading. Reading, especially in urban India, right, we are seeing a shift towards non-fiction, right? Self-development books are in vogue, right? So it's the heyday for publishers in the space of non-fiction, right? So that's a good sign. Next slide. So what is the idea that I wanted to seed? Is there a way in which we can build a systematic process of learning into all these immersive modes? I'll stop at that, but I'll still give you a hint in the next slide. This is a screen grab of a movie called Khel Khel Mein. It's running on Netflix, right? You see a word over there. Honestly, when I was watching that movie and when I saw this word, I did not know the meaning of it. Capish? CAPISH, that's another way of spelling it. Anyone knows the meaning? I'm sure 99.99% of you do know, but let me confess, I did not. Okay, it's of an Italian origin. It means, did you understand? Okay, so is there any way in which, when you're watching a show on Netflix, that you can also learn? You know, so the saying is, don't just Netflix and chill. Use it to enhance your communication skill.
Right? So that's my pitch, that's my presentation for today. The last slide. So let's go build innovative solutions for ELT in India. That's my objective with ELTAI and with all of you all, turning into my evangelists. Look forward to your support. Kapish.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sitting here patiently. And now, please, I request all of the participants and everyone to head to the for the technical sessions. It will be in GHI block and D block seminar hall. GHI block, second floor and third floor. So if you go there, volunteers will guide you. And after the technical sessions, you will have tea there itself in GHI block and in D block. And you will have to come back to auditorium for the cultural evening from 5:30. So we hope to see you for the cultural evening. Thank you so much.